Okay, cool. So let's get started. Hi everyone. I am going to be frank right now. I'm actually going to be changing the direction of my channel, and it's not going to be too much. It's more like I'll be expanding it to just overall arts and crafts rather than restricting myself to digital art, because I always feel like I have different interests at different times of the year, and if I'm only obsessed with doing digital art for like 2 months, then you're only gonna have 2 months worth of recording stuff to do. So from now on, I'm just gonna be recording overall just anything that I'm interested in. So yeah, I'm also rebranding in the sense that I'm going to, instead of going by Imbue, it's just the channel name is going to be Imbue Art, and instead I'll be going by Maymay, which is, you know, like my middle name, and I feel like it feels more humanizing, which I don't think to be called Imbue is dehumanizing in the first place, but I don't know, I think it's cuter. So yeah, so now I'll be going by Maymay, and my channel art, or my channel will be called Imbue Art. And also, from now on, I'm not going to be recording or editing all of my stuff. I'm just gonna be talking just like this, because I would rather just get out content than spend hours on end editing like a 30-minute audio recording. So to get into the topic of today, before I get to the topics today, I know my previous video, I said my schedule was gonna be like once a month because of my university, but I already took my finals, so it's the summer, so I should have time to do at least once a week, but I don't even want to guarantee that because I know myself. But yeah, so to get into the topic of the video today, so I recently found out that I am autistic and I'm on the spectrum and all of that, and I'm not sure how to feel. Like, at first I felt really glad because, you know, like, I was scared I was gonna go into the diagnosis and they're gonna be like, no, you don't have anything. I was really scared about that, but I'm just gonna go into my whole diagnosis, like how I got to it. Okay, hi, editor Maymay here. So when I recorded this, I didn't have a video time lapse in mind, so there will be 3 time lapses in this video. The first piece is the cinema/cover piece illustration for my D&D campaign, consisting of the last dragon family. So you guys probably have already seen Day before, but this is Day in his old design and the rest of his family. Okay, and the second piece is a fantasy image of one of my characters, Alphonse, and a princess, AU. And the third piece is Sable, which is another character from my D&D campaign. She's the deity of famine and is part of a powerful group called the Regalia. Okay, so basically how I found out about my autism diagnosis, it was actually through a friend, and they have ASD, and so I forgot what was it that I had specifically looked up, but previously I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. So I remember there would be times when I would go to my psychiatrist and I'd be like, oh, I can't really focus, I think I might have ADHD. And yeah, she was quick to say, like, no, you just have depression, and if it's just mostly school, then it's probably just ADHD. Or not, if it's mostly just school, it's probably just depression. And I was like, okay, you know what, you're right. Because she also asked, like, if I had this issue growing up, and because she also asked, like, how my grades were growing up in high school, and she was like, or I said no, I had good grades in high school, I didn't have issues with school. So she was like, yeah, it's probably just depression, why you can't focus, because it's a symptom of depression. So she was like, just up your dose for your antidepressants and you should be fine. And I don't know if it was just a placebo effect, but I did up the dosage. But the thing is, like, it also I guess raised my anxiety, because it doesn't treat anxiety, it just treats depression. So it upped my anxiety, so I had to go back to my original dosage. And yeah, I just had like periods of time when I couldn't focus, and then times a period when I like could hyper focus. And so I didn't really question it then. But yeah, it wasn't until like my friend that I had met, they had the ADHD. I was like, okay, it's more like I was aware of how it could present differently in females, but it actually wasn't until I started researching stuff for my D&D campaign, and I don't know how, but I stumbled upon some stuff about autism, and I was like actually reading into the symptoms. And the thing is, I came from like no background in anything mental, like neurodiverse or anything. Like, to me, ADHD was always just like hyper, what's it called? Just all over the place. And then same with autism. I just thought they were just kind of like the people who couldn't really talk, had like issues with talking and like stimming and stuff like that. That was my vision of autism. And it wasn't until I researched the symptoms and I was like, holy heck, this sounds like me. And so I don't know why I still didn't think about it at the time, but then I guess something about the internet, somebody's been listening or reading into my Google searches, but I got recommendations on YouTube to listen to videos about autism in women, and that's when I started resonating. I was like, wow, a lot of these experiences, I thought they were just kind of what everyone else went through, but apparently they didn't. So that is how I found out. And so I remember I talked to this friend, and they were like, I mean, yeah, you could have it. It's best to just get some like articles and stuff and bring it up to your psychiatrist, so hopefully the psychiatrist can recommend you to a place to get tested. And I just remember before like I even brought it up to my friend, I was really scared that they're gonna be like, oh, you couldn't have it, you're too normal. So I was scared about that, because every time I would bring it up to like, I guess my more neurotypical family and friends, they'd be like, well, I never thought of you as being autistic. I mean, you seem to be normal growing up. So yeah, it's just, I guess you can see from my point of view, like, it's kind of like, I feel like I don't really fit in. Not that I don't fit in, but I feel like it's not like, because I don't fit this stereotype, I feel like I don't actually have autism. But I did get the diagnosis, it's on paper. So I do have it. So yeah, even before, because I had to wait like a few months to get my diagnosis, I remember I kept doubting myself, because I would watch videos, I don't know, a lot of my YouTube videos that I preferred to watch were actually on ADHD, and I kept questioning myself, because I thought ADHD really was just like inattention, like the ability to like not be able to control where you can focus. I just thought that's what it was. I was like, maybe I just have ADHD, because I would hear that some people with ADHD, they would have like, you know, like sensory issues and just other issues that kind of seem to overlap with autism, because I know they do have overlapping symptoms. And I thought for a while like, oh, I might just have ADHD, and I feel like I'm overthinking this. Because I know for the most part, a lot of like autistic people, from what I've heard, that they have like issues with socializing, and I was like, well, that can't be me. I'm kind of more on the extroverted side. I like to go out and I like to party, basically. And so I thought that couldn't be me. And it wasn't until I started looking more into my childhood that I realized that I wasn't the best at socializing. So specifically into my childhood, I do remember having a lot of sensory issues. I didn't like loud sounds. Literally, like I could never watch fireworks, and I felt bad because my family likes fireworks. So I just remember my dad taking me to go watch fireworks, and I just remember I was like, oh my god, this is too loud, can we just sit in the car? And even when we were in the car, it was still too loud, and we had to drive far away. We were just like sitting on top of a hill watching fireworks, and I really couldn't enjoy the experience as much as other people. I would also get overwhelmed being like in malls and stuff because there'd just be too many people, too many things going on. And my parents said I used to throw a lot of tantrums like whenever we would go shopping. And I just thought like, oh, it's probably because I was impatient growing up, and I never thought like, oh, it's because I was getting overwhelmed. But honestly, I couldn't tell you. I don't have memories of my tantrums or whatever. And then other things that I had growing up, other sensory stuff that I had was I never was really affectionate in terms of like hugging, cuddling. I just always thought like, oh, it's because my parents weren't affectionate. But even when I did have like my partner, I don't really like to cuddle as much, mostly because I'm very sensitive to heat, and I just don't like it when I'm so close to someone. It's just, I feel like it's them being invaded. But other stuff too, certain sounds, I thought that like people, it was just a general thing that people just didn't like certain sounds, like scratching, like metal scratching against each other. But from what I remember I forgot who I heard this from, but like the sound of scratching, like it hurts, like I flinch, like I actually flinch because I don't know, it feels like it's like a stab in my ear. I don't know if that's considered normal or not. I've been trying to watch other people to gather just like the similarities and between me and other autistic people, and yeah, just considering like what's normal and what's not normal. I also didn't like bright lights, and I thought that was just like a genetic thing that I got from my mom, because she also doesn't like bright lights, and our house is always dark, our rooms are always dark. But I find that whenever I'm in bright lights, like a classroom, I kind of just, it's weird, like after 30 minutes my vision will go weird, like I'll kind of dissociate in a sense, unless I put my sunglasses on, then I feel like I'm a little bit better. But sometimes I feel like I just can't stand bright lights. Like literally sometimes on cloudy days I'll just wear sunglasses and people will like think I have a hangover, but no, I'm just really sensitive to lights. I would also eat really small bites, and I kind of attributed that to more because I kind of grew up a little bit chunky. I'm still chunky, but I grew up thinking like, oh, I can't eat a lot because I feel like I would gain weight a lot. So I would take very small bites because that's what I read would help with like controlling my appetite. And I just thought because of that I can't eat bigger bites anymore. But I tried to eat bigger bites and I feel like I can't. It sounds so weird, but I can't swallow. It's not that I can't swallow, but the taste is also overwhelming and I can't handle so much taste at once. So I don't know, that's just kind of weird. I feel like I have a very sensitive taste, so one little bite is enough to fill like the rest of my mouth. I also had lots of stuffed animals, and I think like it's normal to have stuffed animals growing up, but I thought, because after high school I kind of stopped really talking or caring for my stuffed animals. But in college, when I got like another set of stuffed animals, I couldn't put them down. And I realized now it's more because of like the comfort for feeling like the furriness, the softness. It's comforting. So yeah, that would be stuff for like the senses. In terms of like the social aspect, so looking back, I was actually very, very awkward growing up. I would kind of overstep my boundaries, and I would always ask people to be my best friend, and my parents and family, they all make fun of me for that. I would basically overstep my boundaries and get too close to people, and I wouldn't be aware of what people were comfortable with. And I think it's because I got very self-conscious and I stopped doing that, and I became very shy and quiet. And I think for the most part, like I would just think like, oh, it's because I'm introverted, or like I'm just shy. So I thought when I got to college, when I started, going out and I got into like a sorority and everything, I was like, yeah, I was just shy. I just had to break out of my shell. And then I started reflecting on like the way I talk to people, and I started realizing like, yeah, I can talk to people, I can have a conversation, but there are a lot of like nuances and like subtle hints that I don't pick up on. And sometimes I'll have people that I think that I have a good relationship with, but they don't seem to like reciprocate those same feelings. Like I would be closer to those people than they are closer to me. And I would always feel sad because I'm like, why am I so passionate as a friend? Why can't I just be normal? Like, why am I either 0 or 100? And I realized it's because I don't pick up on, like when people generally don't like to be with me because of, I don't know, something about me they don't like. Yeah, and I would always have like these, no matter where I went, there would always be like these certain like groups of people that I'm just like, why don't they like me? I didn't do anything. Like, it's not like I'm like offending them or something, but they're probably just something about me. I don't know what they didn't like. I would never know unless I talk to them. So yeah, a lot of like how I was able to mask my way going through high school and college is that I kind of made myself act dumb because I thought that, it's more relatable. So I don't know if you've ever watched my first video. I said I grew up smart, and I was smart, but I didn't like the stereotype that came with being smart, that a lot of smart people tend to be kind of mean or rude, and they kind of look down on people, and I didn't want to be that person because I wanted to have friends. So I pretended to be dumb, and it kind of fit in too because sometimes I had like no social awareness or common sense or whatever they call it, so it kind of fit in sometimes. Sometimes the dumb things that I did were genuine because I just wasn't aware. And yeah, I grew up with this, like, also the fact that I just seemed bubbly to people. I think they just like, I don't know, I might feel like I come off as childish because I, for the most part, don't know what's going on, and I also sound dumb while I'm at it. So I don't know, I feel like I sound approachable. I don't know. But I also grew up with mimicking the way that people talk. If I saw that the way that someone's talking was like kind of like they were like a well-liked person, I would copy the way that person would talk. And I didn't notice it growing up, but apparently my friends were like, yeah, some groups of people you would change the way that you would talk. And like, I just thought that was normal. Like, I thought you had to like you would have to match the vibe of whatever group you were hanging out with. But I don't know, I think that's normal, but I still think it's normal, but apparently it's not, ? So again, all of that like social awareness and stuff, I remember I would always go to the therapist and everything, and like I would always tell them like I always feel like I'm such an outcast. Like, why can't I fit in with the jockey kids or the preppy kids, and also like why can't I fit in with the outcast kids? Like, I feel like I couldn't get along in any group. I was kind of just like that one friend that was always in every friend group, and I never had like, I had like 1 or 2 best friends, but I never had like a group of people, like-minded people that I felt like I could relate to. Like, I mean, I could relate to them on like one little aspect. So for example, cheerleading, I like being preppy, I like going out, I like doing my makeup and looking pretty and all of that with like the nerds and stuff. I like studying and like math or whatever. I just like studying. I like academics and artistic friends. Like, I like doing art and I love art theory, but for some reason I could never just get deeply connected to these friend groups. So I guess that's also like I don't want to say symptom, but I guess that's just a common thing that a lot of autistic people have, is feeling that you don't really belong here, like anywhere. And so yeah, that's in terms of the social aspect. In terms of like executive functioning, which I didn't even know was a thing until I started looking up stuff about ADHD. like in the past couple of months. And I didn't realize that, I feel like a lot of same stories of people saying, yeah, I thought I grew up thinking I was lazy, but apparently it was like ADHD, like not being it was with ADHD, like these people couldn't organize. And I was like, oh, I mean, that sounds like me. Like, I always thought I had issues with organizing, and I always thought I was lazy. I mean, I always cleaned. It took me a little longer to get started on cleaning, because I don't know, something about, even if the actual task itself was easy, just thinking about having to do the task was stressful on its own part. And I always thought that I was like a very organized person growing up. At least my parents, they look at me now. I'm just like, why are you so messy? I didn't raise you to be this messy girl. And I started feeling guilty, and I was like, damn, you're right. Like, why am I messy? And I thought it was just because of depression is making me lazy or whatever. And yeah, it wasn't until I looked up executive functioning and I realized I do have issues. I really do have issues, like keeping myself clean. And looking back, I realized I wasn't always the cleanest person. A lot of it, the reason why my room was clean was because everything was shoved in like a drawer or like a closet, just to make my mom happy. Because I don't know, something like, yeah, just the stress of like having to keep clean. So I never actually did keep clean. I just kind of shoved everything in my backpack. And at the beginning of the semester, I would always start with like a clean backpack or something, but throughout the semester I would keep getting messy, and I would have to keep cleaning it over and over. Like it would get to the point where I just have like papers and dollars falling out every time I opened my backpack. But I would always have to declutter it like every other month or so, because I couldn't maintain a clean backpack. And same for my room. Like, it would never stay, like, I would never maintain a clean room. It would always get super dirty, and then I would get my mom coming in and yelling at me to clean it up, and I would have to I would have to take a whole day to clean it up. But ever since I moved into my own apartment, it just stayed messy. I could never keep it clean. And I don't know, I just started getting to the point where I would just kind of ignore it. And yeah, and I remember I used to feel so ableist back then, because it's like I would always look at other people's room and be like, how can you not keep it clean? But now I know, and I realized it was more because of the stress of my parents. And even if it got too messy, my mom would just be like, just let me clean it. And yeah, so I actually didn't grow up thinking I was neat. Like, as much as I thought I was neat, I didn't actually grow up neat. But yeah, so another point, because the executive functioning part was like, oh shoot, I think that I do have something. Another part was like my burnout, and I thought it was like a regular burnout, because when I was explaining in my first video, I just thought like, oh, this is just your typical burnout, I just need a break. But I've actually been reading up on autistic burnout, and I realized, oh wait, that sounds more like what I went through. Because I feel like with the normal burnout, you kind of just lose interest in everything, and it sounds kind of more like depression in a sense. But with the autistic burnout, I still liked doing my art and stuff. I still liked doing my hobbies. I had no problem starting doing my hobbies, but I just could no longer do the things I wasn't really interested in. Like, I started losing interest in my school, and I couldn't keep up with that anymore. I also had issues with masking. I could not go out anymore, and I thought it was just like COVID, like it's just, oh, I just need a couple of weeks to get back into hanging out with people. But even when I did try to force myself into just going out and hanging out with people, I could not stand trying to pretend that I was like a normal person anymore, so I just stopped going out. And I actually lost a lot of abilities to do normal things, like keeping up with my hygiene, and also getting food for myself. I never thought that would be an issue, but I couldn't, okay, I know how to cook, but I couldn't get myself to even go out and drive. And on top of that, I lost the ability to drive. I thought it was an anxiety thing, but every time I would go to drive, it felt more like I was driving for the first time, which is kind of weird. It's the anxiety wasn't from like, I don't know what it was, but it was a weird feeling. Like it just felt foreign every time I drive, even though I've been driving for years. So that was like the burnout. And I realized that I would always have like these burnouts. I would always have them throughout like high school and stuff, and I just needed like a good, few months to get over it, and it'd usually be fine. And so I don't know how the normal burnout is, but yeah, I always feel like, not even just like for months going on, and sometimes I'll get really burnt out in a day, and you just need to give me the rest of the night and I'll be fine the next day. So I think what I went through at the time was autistic burnout rather than like a normal burnout. And it just sucks because every single time I would bring up these things to the therapist to be like, yeah, you're going through a burnout. All you need to do is just talk to a therapist, like another therapist, because I was going to a school therapist. And they'd be like, yeah, you can't bring this. Okay, they didn't say you can't bring this stuff up, but they were like, keep in mind that we're only going to be talking for like 6 weeks. So you just need to keep that in mind and like try to come up with a system to treat yourself or whatever. So that was an issue in its own. I guess the next thing that I also had realized that had led to like me realizing I had autism was a special interest. I think that was one of the number one things that I was like, oh my god, that sounds like me. You mean, because so I grew up, I would always get really deep into things, like, and the thing is, what's funny is like I would always get into like one thing at a time. So for example, like animes or something, I would literally get into one anime for like 2 months at a time or more, and I would never have another anime that I was interested in. And I thought that was the norm, but apparently a lot of people actually watch multiple animes like at a time. Like they're aware of different animes. I'm like, well, sorry, but I can't really watch one until I'm over this one. So also that's like also the case for video games. I'm just like, how do people play multiple video games? Like I can only play one at a time, because that's just what I'm obsessed with at the moment. But yeah, in terms of like special interest, I always thought that I was just kind of passionate and extreme, because I'm telling you, when I really get into something, it will take over my life for days on end. For like literally, I would stay, like, so for example, if I were to get into a fandom, I would read fan fiction for 14 hours a day. I would draw for 14 hours a day. Okay, so it was my life when I woke up, and it was my life going to sleep, because I'd also dreamed about it too. And so I just thought that I was like, oh, I'm just extreme, and it always make me sad, because I would get very passionate about these things, and I could never, it's not that I couldn't bring it up with people, but they wouldn't be so into it the way that I was into it, and it would kind of make me sad, because just like I don't know, I feel like I couldn't relate to people in that sense. It's just like, you would think like, oh, I'm into anime, someone else is into anime, like we should get along. But then the moment we talk about the anime, like, and I start talking about some side character for an hour for like 30 minutes, and just like, dude, I don't even remember that character like showing up. Like they only had screen time for like 10 seconds. I was like, but they were integral to the plot. But I don't know. So yeah, I would always get sad, because I'm just like, why do I really get into weird, like, I don't know, like, and I'm not weird things, but I would always pick out the weird things to get into and get really deep into it. And I would never be able to relate to anybody, because I would be talking about, like, for example, like soundtrack music for a video game. Most people are just like, oh yeah, the gameplay is really cool. But I'm just like, but did you see like did you hear the music? Did you see like the motifs that kept coming up like every stage or something? They'd be like, what are you talking about? And it's so funny, because like the things that people got me into, I got deeper into it. So a lot of like the I guess friends that I used to talk to, like whenever they get me into like a video game, the next thing you know, like I could tell them the lore of the video game. Like for example, Monster Hunter, my boyfriend got me into Monster Hunter, and next thing you know, I was like going into like the plot of all the series and everything, and like literally the small details about each like monster, like where do they come from, and like I don't know, just really random details about each thing. And I just thought, like, I don't know, I thought that I was just extreme in that end. I don't know, I thought I was too extra. And actually, that doesn't apply just to specific interest. I feel like the way I function is very all or nothing. And I guess that's why people are just like, they get surprised whenever they ask me to do something. And they're just like, oh my god, you're doing all of that. And just like, well, it's either you're not into it or you're super into it. And I guess that's the black and white thinking that I heard that a lot of autistic people have. But yeah, in terms of that, I'm pretty sure it covered everything. Yeah, that's pretty much how I came up with a diagnosis. Or not, I didn't come up with a diagnosis, but the reason why I went to go get an official diagnosis is everything that I just talked about. In terms of the future of what I'm gonna do with this channel, as I said before, I'm going to be recording a lot of different things. Okay, I say a lot, but so far I have digital art. I also, at one point, whenever I get back into school, I would also like to record my study sessions and how I study and stuff like that. I don't know, I think of that as an art form because a lot of people don't appreciate. Okay, I sound so mean, but there's an art to studying, and it's not like, oh, pretty papers. It's like it's like systems and the way you would tackle a course. And I don't know, I think it's fun to problem solve and analyze like teachers and classrooms, or not classrooms but subjects. But also, I guess my current obsession at the moment is crocheting, so at some point I'm going to have to reveal my voice, or not my voice, I'm going to have to reveal my face and show it to everyone, because I want to be able to, I'm not going to do tutorials or anything, but I'm just going to do like time lapses, and I would have like similar things like this where I would talk about just anything in general. As I said before, I'm probably going to talk more about like my autism and just general things that I notice about myself, and hopefully like someone I know else would relate to that. I still want to do art. I still will try to do digital art because I just like art. I also really like my characters, and I don't want to be artless for a while. So yeah, thanks for watching or listening, because oh my god, I'm gonna go. Okay, I'm supposed to be concluding, but the purpose of these videos are more for like, it's more of a podcast, but I kind of also put a visual aspect to it because I want to be able to show like the things that I do, and I don't want to just talk about it. So yeah, you could think of this more as a podcast and then a video. But yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, back to conclusions. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for listening to everything. I hope that you will still listen to the channel even though I've been only recording, I only have like 3 videos out. I hope that you continue to stay with me like on my journey to learning more about myself, and you can also see my art progress. But yeah. Hi, editor Maymay here again, because I didn't think to write a proper conclusion for the original audio. So yeah, so there's no walkthrough for this, any of these time lapses. But if you'd like me to try and break down each piece, or even have like an analysis on my process, then please leave a comment saying which piece you'd like me to do that for. Anyway, thank you again for watching through everything. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!